So where I heard you leave off, Allison, was that you had noticed, or in looking back, you didn't realize, say in, I think your adolescence, that you were drinking more than your friends, but in reflection, you could see how you probably were at that time.
Yeah, I liked it. In college, I would take those little quizzes in magazines because I was thinking maybe I've got a problem. But the way I would answer the questions, I mean, I knew how to answer the questions. I wasn't an alcoholic. So moving forward, then I got married and my husband and I were trying to have children. And so during those years, I really did not drink that much because I was aware that I wanted to be pregnant. I was very aware of how the effects of alcohol on during a pregnancy, et cetera. So I didn't. But my husband and I, we've got our beautiful son. It took us 5 years to have him. And then we were trying to have another baby and that didn't work. And when my son was about 4, looking back, I really fell off a cliff. My husband traveled a lot. And so I was home. I did have a job, but I was home with my son. And in the evenings, I'd put him to bed and I would just drink. But then that started getting earlier and earlier in the day. And one time my husband came home and I'm passed out in the middle of the living room floor. And my son, who was 6, is just wandering around and who knows how long I had been passed out. And so at that point, I did take a hiatus from drinking. And I didn't drink very much for about 3 years. Again, looking back, I was just not drinking. I wouldn't say that I was recovered. I just was choosing not to drink. That doesn't mean that I didn't still want to and didn't think about it all the time. And so my darling grandfather, who taught me how to drink, by the way, he also taught me how to dance. I forgot to say that. My grandfather taught me how to dance when I was 4. I could waltz, I could foxtrot, I did all those.
Wow.
So, I just want to say that up front. My grandparents and my family, they didn't know that was what you did. You just, you would teach your children how to sip and that this is a strong drink, etc. But anyway, so he came to visit and we were all partying and he loved Manhattans and he brought some special kind of whiskey. And so we all had Manhattans and I was back off to the races with drinking. And so that carried on, although I have to say that I was still able to hide it. I really did limit when I drank. Like I only drank, like I might have a couple cocktails in the evening, but slowly but surely, as soon as my husband went to bed, I was staying up late and I was still drinking. And I started getting some clues. I have a bunch of girlfriends that we go on girlfriends trips together. And after one of those trips, one of my girlfriends did contact me and she said, Allison, I'm really concerned about your drinking. You were drinking a lot more than the rest of us. You were kind of mean. You were kind of sassy. You didn't really remember like the next day some of the things you'd said to us, and I'm just really concerned. So once again, I just kind of discounted that and kind of watched what I did for a while, but only for a while. Yeah. So I want to then fast forward again to about, oh gosh, I started when I was 50, I would say, okay, my 50th birthday, I'm not going to drink anymore. That came and went. 55, I'm not going to drink anymore. That came and went. But it was getting worse, progressively worse. And I was really, really, truly hiding it from my husband. I mean, I had, the extra bottle in my shoe bag in my closet, the bottle in my linen closet. I would have a bottle in our bar and I would pour myself a drink. And to him, well, he's not stupid, but I would have like 1 or 2 drinks, but really what I was doing was by the time I was done, that wasn't a vodka and tonic. It was just vodka with a lime in it. And I always made sure I threw my limes away so he couldn't see how many limes were in my drink. So it's all that hiding kinds of thing. And then in 2017, the job that I had, I was the executive director of a business, and through all of this time, um, again, so many women that I have run into have been highly, highly successful. They have this hidden drinking thing going on. So I
Mhm.
was very successful in my work. I was successful with a lot of volunteer things that I do. I sat on boards. I sat on an international board. I did all these things, but it was getting worse and worse. And when I stopped working in 2017, then I truly fell off a cliff. That's when I started drinking all day, every day. At night, I would have a glass of water by my bed, but it was actually a glass of vodka, because if I woke up in the middle of the night and felt terrible and couldn't get back to sleep, a couple sips of my vodka and I'd go back to sleep. And so things were getting really bad. And also throughout all of this, my son's life, he would say things to me periodically like, Mom, or Mommy, when he was little, Mommy, why do you drink so much vodka? And when I got older, he'd say, Mom, why do you drink so much? My husband would come to me and say, I'm really concerned about your drinking. And in those later days, I can remember one time my husband came in one morning and said, I'm so concerned about you. I don't want you to die because you are getting sick because of this alcohol. And I looked at him and I said, I really don't care. I like my cocktails and I'm not going to quit drinking. Can you imagine that? I might as well have slapped him in the face or stuck, a sword right in his heart, because that was incredibly painful thing for me to say to him. But I, then another thing that happened just before I started into recovery was my brother-in-law, my sister's husband. He too was an alcoholic. Of course, I kept saying, I'm not like him. I don't get belligerent. I don't get mean. I don't drive when I'm drunk. He was a teacher. He was drinking at school and he drank. So I wasn't like him, but he died. He died of alcoholism, although officially it was a heart attack, but his body was so deteriorated by the time that he passed away that it was incredibly sad, because he was a wonderful person. He was a wonderful dad. He was a lot of fun when he wasn't drinking, and I saw what that did to him. And there shortly after, I was really feeling bad about myself. My son would not come home to visit from college because he didn't want to be around me. My husband was sick and tired of coming home, and either I was passed out on the couch, I was overly happy, Allison, or I was really a bitch. And so he never knew who he was going to come home to. So, that's when a miracle occurred. And I didn't really realize it was truly a miracle again until I was in a recovery for a while, that I didn't realize that I really did not do this completely by myself. People complain about social media. Well, Facebook saved my life, because I was sitting one night by myself really late, probably 11 o'clock at night, and just miserable and feeling guilty. And why can't I stop drinking? I don't want to stop. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I want to be able to have just cocktails with my family and not have to go off the deep end. And lo and behold, this woman that I know, she's younger than I am. I knew that she was sober. I also knew that she'd had a liver transplant. And she popped up on her Facebook page saying that she was grace and gratitude, that she'd been sober X number of years. And I was like, oh, I'm going to reach out for help. Literally, I feel like somebody smacked me on the back of my head and said, you need to ask her for help right now. And I did. I Facebook messaged her and said, will you please meet with me? I have a problem. And she said, are you drunk now? I said, yes. Are you safe? Yes. And she said, I want you to meet me at this meeting tomorrow. And so I did. And the relief I felt when I finally reached out for help from other people was unbelievable, because I am so self-sufficient that I kept thinking I was going to be able to think myself out of this thing, self-help book myself out of this thing.
Right?
I could not. And so, so I've been sober since November 30th of 2018. And now I want to just go from what that meant and what it was like, because I thought that, okay, I'm here. This is nice. These people are really nice to me. They're friendly. I might come like, I might come back to these meetings like once a week. Well, I was so grateful because once again, there were some women there that I say they swooped me up into their hearts and right away were telling me where else I could go. There were some, I am in a specific program. However, I have a couple other groups that I go to that are just women who we do sort of follow the program, but we also just share our experiences as women. And they swept me up into that. And so I'm just forever grateful. Kind of like why I want to share my story now too, is because these women were like me. You know, I walked into this room and frankly, it was mostly men. And it was at this particular meeting that I've learned now, it's mostly older men who have been sober for a really long time. And, you know, they were wonderful, but if it hadn't been for women that were like me, that were at that meeting, who swept me up, I don't think that I would have felt as comfortable and as loved and welcomed. And so that was just such a blessing. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that it was really important for me to find what I'm going to refer to as a trusted friend. I met this woman and there was something about her that just clicked. And she was great because she got my number right away. She knew that I was an overachiever. She knew that I wanted to get my gold stars stamped on my little chart. And so she would not let me just do this program like checklist, checklist, checklist. You've done these, check, check, check. Oh, I'm done. I'm sober. I'm done. She was not going to let me do that. So I've been forever grateful that she also is part of my life because she's been a great help to me. And so really, I have to say that first year was mostly just feeling physically better. I had forgotten to mention in the meantime, when I was falling off that cliff, I had some blood tests done and my liver was not in good shape. And my numbers in my blood were just not good. And outwardly, I don't think I still didn't have, well, my eyes were bloodshot a lot, but if I look back at pictures, I don't really, you can't physically see what was starting to happen to me,